From 1910 to 1920, over 1 million people were killed in revolutionary conflicts in Mexico. This decade-long struggle was one of the most significant and bloodiest periods in the nation's history. Imagine the sheer scale of this conflict. Entire regions were engulfed in chaos, with battles raging across the countryside and cities alike. Picture the families torn apart, the villages decimated, the land itself scarred by violence. The human cost was immense, with countless lives disrupted and communities forever changed. This period, known as the Mexican Revolution, was a brutal struggle for power and social justice. It was a time of great upheaval, where the old order was challenged and new ideas about governance and society began to take root. It was a time when ordinary people, armed with whatever they could find, rose up against a deeply entrenched and oppressive regime. These makeshift armies were composed of men and women who had little formal training but a fierce determination to fight for their rights. The Mexican Revolution was not a single, unified movement. It was a complex tapestry of different factions, each with their own goals and ideologies. Some fought for land reform, others for workers' rights, and still others for political power. Despite their differences, they were united by a common desire to overthrow the existing regime. However, one common thread ran through many of these uprisings: guerrilla warfare. This form of irregular warfare, characterized by small mobile units using hit-and-run tactics, proved to be highly effective against the Mexican Federal Army. These tactics allowed the revolutionaries to strike quickly and disappear before the enemy could mount a counterattack. These guerrilla fighters were not trained soldiers. They were ordinary people who took up arms out of necessity and a deep sense of injustice. They were farmers, miners, teachers, shopkeepers, ordinary people driven to extraordinary lengths by desperation and a burning desire for change. Their knowledge of the local terrain and their ability to blend in with the civilian population gave them a significant advantage. They knew the land, they understood the local populations, and they were willing to fight and die for their beliefs. Their intimate knowledge of the terrain allowed them to use the environment to their advantage, setting traps and ambushes that confounded their enemies. The Mexican Revolution was a pivotal moment in the country's history. It not only toppled a dictatorship, but also gave birth to a new national identity, one forged in the fires of rebellion and tempered by the sacrifices of countless individuals. It not only toppled a dictatorship, but also gave birth to a new national identity, one forged in the fires of rebellion and tempered by the sacrifices of countless individuals. The legacy of the revolution continues to shape Mexico to this day, reminding us of the power of ordinary people to effect extraordinary change. Guerrilla warfare in Mexico didn't begin in 1910. It has a long and complex history dating back to the 19th century. Think of the indigenous communities resisting Spanish colonization, utilizing their knowledge of the land to stage ambushes and raids. Consider the peasant revolts against land seizures, eruptions of anger and frustration against injustice. These early forms of resistance laid the groundwork for the guerrilla tactics that would become so effective during the revolution. They demonstrated the power of local knowledge, the importance of mobility and surprise, and the effectiveness of striking at the enemy's weak points. Emiliano Zapata, a name synonymous with land reform and social justice, was a beacon of hope for many during turbulent times. He rose to prominence during the Mexican Revolution, a period marked by intense struggle and upheaval. Imagine him, a charismatic leader with a deep connection to the people, speaking passionately to crowds, inspiring them with his vision. Rallying his forces in the southern state of Morelos, he became a symbol of resistance and determination. Picture the Zapatistas, mostly peasant farmers who were driven by a shared dream of reclaiming their land. They fought tirelessly for the return of their ancestral lands, which had been unjustly taken by wealthy landowners. Zapata understood the power of the people and the importance of their cause. His army, known as the Liberation Army of the South, was a formidable force. They were a force to be reckoned with, well organized and highly motivated. Utilizing guerrilla tactics to great effect, they launched surprise attacks, disrupted supply lines, and then seamlessly melted back into the familiar terrain, making them elusive and effective. Zapata's legacy extends far beyond his military victories and strategic prowess. He became a symbol of hope for the oppressed, a beacon of resistance and resilience. A true champion of the poor and marginalized, his efforts were deeply rooted in the fight for justice. His rallying cry, Tierra y Libertad, land and liberty, became a powerful slogan. It continues to resonate throughout Mexico and beyond, inspiring generations to stand up for their rights and freedoms. In the north, a different kind of revolutionary leader emerged, Pancho Villa. He was not just a military figure, but a symbol of hope and defiance for many. Imagine a whirlwind of energy, a charismatic bandit turned revolutionary, leading his Division del Norte, Division of the North, in a series of daring raids and battles. Villa's presence on the battlefield was electrifying, inspiring his men to fight with unparalleled bravery. Picture Villa's forces, a mix of cowboys, miners, and former soldiers, united by a shared desire for social change and a deep distrust of the central government. These men, from various walks of life, found common ground in their fight for a better future. Villa's tactics differed from Zapata's. While Zapata focused on agrarian reforms in the south, Villa's approach was more militaristic and strategic. He embraced mobility, utilizing his cavalry to great effect in the vast, open expanses of northern Mexico. His troops could cover great distances quickly, striking where the enemy least expected. His forces would strike quickly and decisively, often targeting government outposts and supply lines before disappearing back into the desert. This guerrilla warfare tactic kept the enemy constantly on edge. Villa, like Zapata, became a legend in his own time. His charisma and daring exploits made him a folk hero, admired and feared by many. His exploits captured the imagination of the people, and his name became synonymous with rebellion and resistance against tyranny. Songs and stories of his bravery spread far and wide, cementing his place in history. Section 5, Land and Liberty, the Power of Terrain. The success of both Zapata and Villa was deeply intertwined with their understanding and utilization of local terrain. Imagine the dense jungles and mountains of Morelos providing cover for Zapata's forces as they laid ambushes for government troops. Picture the vast open deserts of the north, allowing Villa's cavalry to outmaneuver and outride their enemies. These leaders knew their environments intimately. They used this knowledge to their advantage, turning the land itself into a weapon. Their fighters, many of whom were farmers and ranchers before the revolution, were intimately familiar with the terrain. They knew the hidden paths, the water sources, the places where they could disappear and reappear at will. Section 6. Beyond the Revolution, Guerrilla Tactics in the 20th Century. The Mexican Revolution may have ended in 1920, but the use of guerrilla tactics in Mexico did not. Throughout the 20th century, various groups, inspired by the revolutionaries of the past, adopted similar strategies in their struggles against the government. Consider the student protests of 1968 met with brutal government repression. Picture the emergence of leftist guerrilla groups in the 1970s fighting against social injustice and political corruption. These groups, though smaller in scale than the revolutionary armies of the past, utilized similar tactics of surprise, mobility, and local support. Section 7. Whispers of Resistance, Modern Guerrilla Movements. Even today, in the 21st century, the legacy of guerrilla warfare continues to shape the socio-political landscape of Mexico. Imagine the Zapatista Army of National Liberation, or EZLN, emerging in Chiapas in 1994, their balaclava-clad faces a stark image on television screens worldwide. Think of their struggle for indigenous rights and autonomy, their use of the internet and social media to garner international support. The EZLN, while not engaging in large-scale military operations, have effectively utilized their knowledge of the terrain, their deep connections to local communities, and their mastery of communication to challenge the Mexican government and bring global attention to their cause. Their struggle serves as a potent reminder that the fight for social justice and equality is far from over. Section 8. A Legacy Forged in Struggle. The legacy of guerrilla warfare in Mexico is complex and multifaceted. It is a legacy etched in the collective memory of the nation, passed down through generations in stories, songs, and traditions. It is a legacy of resistance against oppression, of fighting for one's beliefs, of standing up for what is right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. This legacy is not without its shadows. Guerrilla warfare, by its very nature, is brutal and unforgiving. It often leads to civilian casualties and widespread destruction. It can also be used by groups with questionable motives, leading to further violence and instability. Section 9. The enduring spirit of Mexican resistance. Despite the complexities and contradictions, the spirit of resistance embodied by Mexican guerrilla movements continues to inspire people around the world. It speaks to a universal desire for freedom, justice, and self-determination. It reminds us that even the most powerful governments and institutions can be challenged by the will of the people. The story of guerrilla warfare in Mexico is a story of courage, resilience, and an unwavering belief in the possibility of change. It is a story that continues to unfold today, reminding us that the struggle for a more just and equitable world is far from over.